There is something deeply, almost medicinally comforting about looking down at your phone and seeing that little pulsing blue dot on a map.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the ultimate modern safety blanket.
Right. It tells you exactly where you are, exactly where you are going, and, down to the literal minute when you'll get there. It's entirely mathematical. It's certain.
Yeah, that blue dot removes all the terrifying guesswork from the physical world. I mean, for anyone listening to this right now, think about the last time you were genuinely, truly lost.
Look, actually untethered from your location.
Exactly. Not just taking a wrong turn, but completely lost. We engineer our lives specifically to avoid that exact feeling.
We do, and we do a great job of it. But I want you to imagine just stripping away that glowing rectangle. Rewind the clock to a time before smartphones, before Google Maps, and, way before you could check a driver's Uber rating.
Suddenly that safety blanket is just gone.
Gone. You are stepping into an analog world that is raw, unpredictable, and entirely dependent on the unprogrammed kindness of strangers. So, welcome to No Signal, a show dedicated to extracting the most thrilling, insightful, and profound nuggets from your stack of sources.
And today's deep dive is a really special one.
It is. Today's mission is to unpack episodes 10 through 12 of Marcy's raw, unvarnished hitchhiking diary. We are following his journey starting way up north in Sapporo, Hokkaido, down to Kyushu, right before he eventually crosses the ocean into Asia.
Yeah, and we're anchoring ourselves right at the cusp of the year 2001, December 2000 to be exact.
Which is such a specific vibe.
It really is. And for those of you feeling, I don't know, a little exhausted by our hyper-connected, GPS-tracked, algorithmically optimized world, this era of travel serves as this powerful, almost paradoxical antidote.
Which brings us to the core question that I really want you to carry through this narrative today. How much of life's magic and our own resilience are we missing by having every route, ride, and rescue perfectly planned on the glowing rectangles in our pockets?
That is the vital question here. Because the leg of the journey we are examining today, it represents a massive atmospheric shift.
Yeah, it goes from 0 to 100 real quick.
It really does. Marcy transitions from this comfortable, nostalgic return into a pure survival thriller. We're going to see eerie mountain encounters, massive highway gambles, and how Eastern philosophies of connection manifest when you are completely vulnerable.
So let's look at how this specific leg of the trip begins, because it sets the thematic stage perfectly. Marcy wakes up in Tokyo, and it's this slightly awkward morning.
Right, he's rushing out of his childhood friend Mio's house.
Because Mio's girlfriend happens to be there. But the thing is, he can't actually start hitchhiking in Tokyo.
Oh, no. For anyone who has been there, the Tokyo metropolis is just this dense concrete labyrinth.
Yeah, cars are moving way too fast. There is literally nowhere to pull over. And the density makes it functionally impossible to stick a thumb out. You can't conquer Tokyo with a cardboard sign.
The environment completely dictates your method.
So Marcy invokes what he calls his special rule. He takes a local train out of the city, sprawled down to the coastal town of Kamakura, to officially begin his hitchhiking for the day.
Which is technically cheating, but we'll allow it.
Right, exactly. So he walks to the coast, looks for a good spot to flag down a car, and realizes he has naturally gravitated to the exact same stretch of pavement where he successfully hitched a ride 2 years prior.
Down to the specific meter of asphalt.
Which connects to this incredible backstory. Because 2 years ago, Marcy was hitchhiking with a senior of his, this guy named Toru.
But Toru didn't even want to go initially, did he?
No, Toru's father, who was a former bicycle wanderer himself, basically pushed his son out the door. He told Toru, Marcy is here hitchhiking, you should go with him.
And Toru ended up hitchhiking all the way to Okinawa.
Yeah, he completely caught the travel bug for life. I look at Toru's dad like a system disruptor, like a manual override.
Oh, I like that. What do you mean?
Well, in our daily lives today, algorithms push us towards safe, predictable choices. They say, take this route to avoid 3 minutes of traffic, or, buy this product because people like you bought it.
We're constantly insulated.
Exactly. But here, human intervention actively breaks the loop of comfortable routine to force serendipity.
And that concept of forced serendipity ties directly into why Marcy is standing in that exact same spot in Kamakura 2 years later. It illustrates a deeply Eastern philosophical view of travel.
Yeah, let's dig into that.
Well, in the West, we often view travel as a conquest of geography, right?
Yeah.
You conquer the miles between point A and point B as efficiently as possible. But in this context, travel is viewed as a web of M,
Break that down for us. What does N actually mean here?
N translates roughly to karmic connections or, like, relational fate. It is the idea that unseen threads connect people, places, and events.
So it's not just a coincidence.
Right. Marcy returning to that same physical spot in Kamakura isn't just a logistical choice about traffic flow. Spiritually speaking, he is returning to a node of good fortune, a geographical point where his N was previously strong.
Trusting that the thread is still there. And, I mean, the thread definitely provides. The weather is unusually warm for December. He catches 4 cars in rapid succession.
Just effortlessly gliding through the coastal roads.
All the way to the entrance of Hakone, which honestly is incredibly dangerous, psychologically speaking.
Oh yeah, that string of easy luck builds this profound, false sense of security.
And the atmosphere turns on a dime, because the moment he starts walking the actual mountain pass of Hakone, that nostalgic, breezy vibe just shatters.
The physical landscape of Hakone carries a heavy historical weight. I mean, during the Edo period, hundreds of years ago, Hakone was one of the most grueling, heavily guarded checkpoint passes in Japan.
Samurai, merchants, travelers, they all suffered on this path.
Yeah, but in the year 2000, it is entirely desolate. No one walks it. It is a place meant for cars to pass through quickly.
So picture this. Marcy is walking this quiet, winding, just eerie mountain road. He's wearing a heavy 30-kilogram backpack, looking like a typical rugged traveler.
Right.
Then, out of the dead silence, he sees a figure approaching on foot. But this person isn't wearing hiking gear. He's in thin, street clothes.
And leather shoes. Right.
Yes, he's wearing what look like leather office shoes. And Marcy notes that this stranger has the distinct, unsettling aura of someone who hasn't been home in days.
Oh, man.
If you are Marcy, alone on a mountain road where humans fundamentally do not belong, what goes through your head?
Well, your survival instincts would absolutely scream at you. In a Japanese cultural context, seeing a man wandering the desolate mountains in business attire immediately conjures the specter of the Johatsu.
The evaporated people.
Yes. The Johatsu phenomenon refers to people who intentionally disappear to escape crippling debt, severe shame, or inescapable family issues.
Because of strict privacy laws in Japan, it is actually quite possible to simply vanish, right?
Exactly. They drop off the grid entirely.
Mm-hmm.
So when Marcy sees this man, the tension is whether he has just stumbled across a fugitive, or worse, a man wandering into the wilderness to do something desperate and final.
The tension in the diary is just palpable here. They are the only 2 humans on this mountain, getting closer and closer, forced to acknowledge each other, and then the stranger speaks.
What does he say?
He looks at Marcy and asks, "Are you hitchhiking?" Marcy cautiously says yes, and then the truth spills out. This guy isn't a ghost, and he isn't a criminal.
Okay, so who is he?
He's a young guy from Osaka who traveled to Tokyo for a job, but the job fell through, or it was a scam. He found himself totally unemployed. And then he lost his wallet.
Oh, no. Leaving him stranded in Tokyo, which is one of the most expensive cities on Earth.
With absolutely zero resources. So what does he decide to do? He decides to walk back to Osaka.
The sheer scale of that decision is staggering. For perspective, walking from Tokyo to Osaka is roughly 300 miles.
It's crazy.
It is the equivalent of trying to walk from Los Angeles to San Francisco or, London to the Scottish border.
And he started walking on Christmas Day. When Marcy meets him on the Hakone Pass, it is 4 days later.
4 days?
He has been walking for 4 days in thin street clothes, sleeping under freezing park benches in the dead of winter.
That is just brutal.
Now, I have to push back here because I am having a really hard time grasping the logic of this.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, think about your life today. If we lose our wallet, we Apple Pay our way home, or we text a friend. I understand pride, but choosing to endure near-fatal freezing conditions rather than walking into a police box or asking a stranger for train fare. Is there something deeper going on culturally here?
It sounds completely irrational to us, definitely, until you apply the lens of Meiwaku.
Meiwaku.
Okay, what is that?
In Japanese society, Meiwaku is the concept of causing trouble or being a burden to others. It is instilled from a very young age that the worst social offense you can commit is to inconvenience someone else.
Ah, I see. This young man was paralyzed by the shame of his situation. He didn't know the informal rules of hitchhiking, and the cultural fear of inflicting his burden on a stranger was literally stronger than his fear of freezing to death.
Wow.
He chose agonizing physical suffering over the intense social vulnerability of asking for help.
That completely reframes the whole situation. It's not just stubbornness, it's a profound cultural paralysis. But he finally reaches his breaking point when he sees Marcy.
Right, because Marcy's doing the very thing he was too scared to do.
Exactly. And suddenly, Marcy steps into this role of an impromptu spiritual guide. He gives this freezing runaway a crash course in hitchhiking. He says, here's how you hold your hand, here's how you make eye contact with the drivers.
But teaching the mechanics is the easy part. The real challenge is that drivers are naturally incredibly wary of picking up two grown men on a desolate mountain road.
Right. It takes a minor miracle, but after 30 minutes, they catch a ride to Fuji City, with Mount Fuji looming right in the background, and then another ride to a major highway parking area.
And this is where the survival thriller element really escalates again.
It does. They need to get onto the main highway heading west. They wait for an hour. Nobody wants to pick up two unknown men at a rest stop.
Naturally.
Finally, a massive long-haul truck pulls over. The driver happens to be from Osaka, and he immediately bonds with the runaway.
It's a return to that concept of N. The exact right person appearing at the exact right time, forged by this shared hometown connection.
But getting into the truck introduces a totally new layer of tension, because the truck driver's company has incredibly strict regulations against picking up hitchhikers.
Yeah, the corporate culture surrounding commercial driving in Japan is highly regulated. If this driver is caught carrying unauthorized passengers, it isn't just a slap on the wrist.
It's immediate termination, right?
Yes, he is risking his livelihood to help them.
So, to mitigate that massive risk, they have to engage in this covert operation. One of them has to hide entirely out of sight in the sleeper cabin, directly behind the driver's seat, while the truck is moving.
Which is wild.
So you have these two guys who were total strangers, shivering on a mountain just hours ago, now smuggling themselves across the country in the back of a freight train.
It creates an incredibly intense shared secret. And they ride for hours in this clandestine state.
They eventually reach Nara, which is close enough to Osaka that the runaway is effectively saved. They drop him off. And here is the part of the diary that really struck me.
What's that?
They say goodbye and they part ways. They don't exchange phone numbers. They literally never see him again.
It is the perfect conclusion to that specific encounter.
But I try to map that onto how we interact today, and it feels so foreign. We live in this hyper-networked reality.
Right. Everyone wants to connect.
Every person you meet at a conference or a party or even on a flight becomes a LinkedIn connection or an Instagram follow. We hoard human contacts like currency, terrified of losing a potential resource.
Yeah, we really do.
But Marcy literally saved this man from walking hundreds of miles in freezing weather, and they just let the connection dissolve into the night.
What you are observing there is the physical embodiment of Ichigo Ichie.
Ichigo Ichie.
Yeah. It is a profound Japanese philosophy that translates to one time, one meeting. It's the understanding that every single encounter is entirely unique. Even if you were to meet the exact same person tomorrow, the context, the mood, and the exact dynamic would be different.
So it's never really the same.
Right. Therefore, the encounter must be treasured solely in its exact moment.
So trying to hold on to it actually ruins it.
Precisely. You don't help someone to build your network or to bank a favor for later. You help them because the road demands it. It requires a deep spiritual trust in the journey.
Wow.
Marcy gave what he could, the young man received the salvation he needed, and the transaction is complete. Forcing a future meeting or exchanging numbers dilutes the purity of the Ichigo Ichie.
That is a staggering way to move through the world. You give everything to the moment, and then you just let it go.
But letting go has consequences.
It definitely does. Marcy has surrendered control, but he still needs to reach his own destination of Nagoya, so he stays in the truck as it continues into the night.
And this transition is where the analog reality truly bites back. The safety of that Ichigo Ichie connection inside the truck is about to be severed, leaving him entirely exposed.
Because the sun is down, it is pitch black. The truck driver is from Osaka, so he knows the long interstate routes, but he doesn't know the specific local exits around Nagoya.
And remember our setting. No GPS, no pulsing blue dot.
Marcy has an early cell phone, but in the year 2000, it is essentially just a portable landline. There is no internet access, there are no digital maps.
It's just you and the road signs.
Exactly. He tries calling his friend Saki-san in Nagoya to ask which exit is best. No answer. So they are hurtling down the highway at 60 miles an hour in the dark, and Marcy has to guess his exit purely by squinting at passing blue highway signs.
A high-stakes guessing game.
He sees a sign for Nagoya, panics that they might overshoot it entirely, and tells the driver to drop him at the next service area.
And it goes terribly wrong.
He guesses completely wrong. He is dropped at the Kamigo service area. The truck rumbles away into the dark, and that lifeline is gone.
What time is it at this point?
It's 9:30 p.m. Marcy finds a back exit used by employees, hikes 20 minutes down a desolate road, and finds a solitary convenience store. He walks in, asks the clerk where he is, and finds out he isn't in Nagoya at all. He is in Toyota City.
The dark irony of being stranded without a car in a sprawling metropolis, literally named after an automobile manufacturer.
I know, right? And the nearest train station is a 30-minute walk away. To ground this for you listening, imagine trying to navigate the endless industrial outer sprawl of Los Angeles or Detroit on foot in the pitch black with absolutely no map.
It sounds like a nightmare.
It is freezing, he is exhausted, and he is genuinely terrified. He remembers mistakes from past hitchhiking trips. Hitchhiking at 10 p.m. is prime time to accidentally flag down the Yakuza or someone incredibly dangerous.
Because the benevolent travelers are all at home.
Exactly. The rules of the road invert when the sun goes down.
The unpredictability of the analog world becomes a massive liability rather than a source of magic.
So his survival instinct kicks in, and he abandons his hitchhiking purity. He decides, forget this. I am walking to the train. I will buy a ticket. I am done.
He said enough.
He is trudging toward the station in total defeat. And as he's walking, purely out of muscle memory, he throws up a half-hearted limp thumb at the empty road. Just a pathetic, exhausted gesture.
And what happens?
Instantly, a car of young locals slams on the brakes and picks him up.
It completely defies all the established logic of hitchhiking.
It is maddening. Think about earlier in the day at the Fuji rest stop. He tried so hard, he projected confidence, used the proper techniques, and he waited an hour. Here, he gives up, barely tries, and salvation arrives in seconds. What is the mechanism there? Why do people pull over for the totally defeated traveler?
Because vulnerability is the ultimate currency of human connection. Yeah, think about it. When Marcy was at the rest stop projecting confidence, he looked like a guy who had a plan. He looked like he was asking for a logistical favor.
Right, like a transaction.
But when he was walking in the dark with a limp thumb, he stripped away all pretense. He looked truly vulnerable. He didn't look like a hitchhiker. He looked like a human being in deep trouble.
Wow.
We are psychologically wired to respond to raw vulnerability much more deeply than we respond to a confident request.
They weren't doing him a favor, they were rescuing him. And the humor of the rescue is that the locals who picked him up didn't even know where they were going either.
Oh, of course not.
They tell him they can take him to a station, but they don't know the area well.
Which leads to a beautiful, chaotic mess of analog problem solving.
Marcy finally gets his friend Saki-san on the phone. He hands the phone to the driver. The driver and Saki-san, two complete strangers, are blindly trying to describe vague landmarks to each other in the dark to figure out a rendezvous point.
That is just incredible.
They eventually manage to coordinate a drop-off 3 train stations away.
It is a masterclass in community coordination without screens. There is no dropping a pin. There is no sharing a live location.
None of that.
It requires active communication, immense patience, and a shared, tangible desire to help this stranger reach his destination.
It is incredibly messy, but it works. Marcy finally meets Saki-san at 10:30 p.m. Now, after a day that included teaching a runaway how to survive, hiding in a freight truck, and navigating blind through the industrial sprawl of Toyota City, you would assume he collapses into bed.
Naturally.
But this is a 2000s backpacker diary. It ends the only way it can, with an absurd display of youthful stamina. They go out and drink until 4:00 a.m.
Surviving a day like that demands a celebration. The adrenaline alone would keep you awake.
And the punchline is that Saki-san, who is older, has an early morning business flight to Hokkaido in just a few hours.
Oh, that's brutal.
But they stay up drinking anyway. And it's over those early morning beers that Marcy establishes a vital, non-negotiable survival philosophy for the rest of his trip. He literally writes down, hitchhiker operating hours strictly end at 7:00 or 8:00.
A hard boundary drawn directly from a terrifying experience.
I just laugh at how life or death survival rules are written in real time, in the margins of a pub menu.
But that is exactly how true wisdom is forged. It isn't theorized in a controlled classroom. It is earned by making a terrifying mistake, stumbling through the dark, and living to codify it over a beer.
Yeah.
He didn't read an article about the dangers of the night road. He felt that danger in his bones and adapted.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's bring it back to the core question we posed at the beginning. How much of life's magic and our own resilience are we missing by relying on our glowing rectangles?
It's a lot to consider.
Think about Marcy's chaotic day. From the runaway ghost of Hakone to the blind, desperate drop-off in Toyota City. Every single moment of that journey was dictated by serendipity, by taking enormous risks, and by trusting the unprogrammed kindness of strangers.
If Marcy had a smartphone, none of this would have happened.
None of it.
He would have looked up the train schedule in Hakone, bypassing the walking man entirely. He would have known exactly which exit to take off the highway, avoiding Toyota City, avoiding the fear of the Yakuza, and missing that late-night rescue.
He would have been perfectly safe. And he would have completely missed the magic.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something to explore on your own. The next time your GPS violently reroutes you around a traffic jam to save you 4 minutes, ask yourself, who or what were you supposed to encounter on that delayed road?
That is profound.
In our relentless, modern quest to eliminate all friction from our lives, are we also eliminating fate?
That is a heavy, incredible thought to take with you. Now remember, this is just the warm-up. Marcy has survived the night and made it to Nagoya, but his ultimate destination is across the ocean, deep into Asia.
It's going to get wild.
Oh, the journey, the danger, and the raw analog survival are only going to escalate from here. The road continues, and you definitely won't want to miss it. Join us next time on No Signal.